Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Sound of the Loons, presented by Allina Health. I'm Kyndra D. St. Aubin. Get to be joined by the one and only Finnish superstar, midfielder, renaissance man, maybe number 9, maybe winger. I know Michael Boxall wants to play center back with you one time just to see how you do. Robin Lod, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Is that the best introduction you've ever had, or do you get different, better ones from the locker room?
No, that's easily the best one so far.
So how do you think you would do at center back? I want to know. Like, you think you'd be okay, or?
I think I would do pretty well, I guess.
What's the only spot not so much? Maybe goalie, or like how does Dane feel about your goalkeeping skills?
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to see me as a goalie, hopefully. So he can stay there for sure for now.
Yeah, I know. I do. My broadcast partner now, Kevin Egan, when we did, it must have been maybe it was the first game, your home game against Red Bulls, and he was talking about you on the air, and I think he might have called you a utility man, and I was like, no. Like, you got to call, that has like a negative connotation. Let's call him a renaissance man, because he can literally play anywhere on the field. So I want to talk about your time with Minnesota United. And I remember when you first signed and you came over, and I think you were in your off season, kind of like on a holiday, like just like, hey, I'm going to sign with Minnesota. And you showed up, and there was like these high expectations. I don't think you scored a goal that season, but you didn't seem too concerned about it. And then you came in the next year and just like lit the world on fire. Is that just your MO? You're just sort of chill? Do you not read any of the stuff that's said about you and all that pressure?
No, I mean, I played 3 years in Greece, and that's, I guess, one of the hardest place to play from like criticizing wise. And I grew up thick skin, if you can say like that. And it doesn't bother me too much what if people likes to like criticize, and I totally get it. Like the fans, they like to cheer the teams and want us to do well, and if things doesn't go well, it's easy to criticize players. But yeah, I'm not too bothered of that, and I'm always like confident about my skills, and I wasn't effective, and I knew that, but at least I remember I get to the chances, and I knew that it's just a matter of time that I get the groove on it.
I love that. You're just like, calm down, people. Don't worry. The goals will come, the assists will come, whatever's been asked of you along the way. Tell me a little bit about growing up with the thick skin, as you just called it. You talked about playing in Greece, but even before that, I don't think I've ever actually gotten to talk to you sort of about your upbringing and your path and, how you got to where you are and the different paths along the way. What's that been like for you? Can you take us through sort of like a synopsis of that?
Yeah, I mean, I started to play football, as I call it, when I was a little boy, and I think like in the youth I did really well, and I really scored a lot of goals and did really well. And I think like on my teenage years, I struggled a lot. I had some like back injuries, and I felt like my age, who I grew up playing, they were going more forward than I did, and I had to take, I guess, like one step back and play with some younger guys. And it was tough at that time. Like on my teenage years, people start to get their first call-ups when they're like under 15, 16 or 17, and I didn't even get to the camps where they choose the players to represent Finland. And but that never like broke me down or anything, and I just knew that if I just work hard, and I still have time. And I think when I was like 18, 19, I started to like break through and get my first under 19 call-ups, and I get to play with the first team with Helsinki, and from there on I just knew that I can do it as a professional. And yeah, it wasn't easy always, but I never stopped doubting myself, and I always just pushed forward.
No hockey for you. I mean, there's a lot of Finnish guys in the NHL over here. Like, can you skate at least? I mean, I can't believe we haven't done a special with you skating yet.
Yeah, I mean, I played hockey until I was 14, and
Okay.
I really actually enjoyed it. And there's few guys I played with when I was younger who made some games in even in NHL. So it's always fun to watch those guys. And yeah, I played hockey and football until I was 14, and I really enjoyed both. And it was a kind of tough decision because hockey is so popular in Finland, and I think it's like you see people have more chances to get like to the highest level. But somehow I don't know, it's just something about football that in the end made me easy to make the decision. If like I said, like it was hard decision, but at the same time it was easy decision.
I actually feel like there's a lot of similarities between hockey and soccer, or football, as you call it. Like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but sort of like the nature of the flow of the game. There's, not really like quote set plays. There's a style. There's, I don't know, like a lot of guys that are from Minnesota play hockey and soccer. I mean, my husband did that as well, and like his whole team played hockey and soccer. So, do you find that there's some similarities in kind of the flow of the game and the creativity and the reading of the game?
Definitely. And I feel like both games are really team oriented, that nobody can do it by themselves, and you have to work together with your teammates. And when you work with your teammates the best way you can, I think you get the best results. So for sure, that's similar to football. And yeah, as you said, the game flow, it can go like at some point you are really struggling, but suddenly next 5 minutes you are on top of your opponent. So it's, yeah, it goes kind of similar way in both sports.
Just less fighting, in soccer, which is probably a good thing. But I want to talk about the team aspect, is specifically Minnesota United sort of transitioning into this season. Once again, you've been kind of slotted into that midfielder role. Now, last year we were playing a little bit deeper on the field when Will Trapp was injured, and
Yeah.
obviously Hassani wasn't back yet, and so now pushing up a little bit higher. What do you attribute the team's success early on? I know you're coming off a loss to Chicago, but prior to that, being undefeated, getting some road wins, what do you attribute from your position now that you've been around for a bit to the team's success this season?
I mean, I'm just trying to do my best and help the teammates. I don't think I've been best in the beginning of the season. I know I can do way more, but as you said, the team is doing really well, and I think it's just show how good we are as a team. There's not anyone we are dependent, and we are just pushing each other and working together. So that's really the team success in this season.
Do you find it difficult to navigate the different positions? You always say the right things, and like, I will play wherever I am asked to play, do my best for the team. I mean, we've talked about this 1,000 times, like your nature. And Adrian's like, well, if Robin's healthy, he's going to be on the field. I don't know where he's going to be on the field necessarily, but I know he's going to be on the field, because when he's on the field, we find success. So how do you navigate preparing each week, preparing each game when you're changing roles?
I mean, yeah, it's tough, even though I enjoy it, because you always have to think a little bit different way when you play in a different positions, and you have to adapt all the time. I mean, the toughest part is that you don't get the repetitions. Like, let's say if you always play the same position game out, game in, and every year on the same, you can start to build up some things that that works, and then just correct the things that is not working. And that's, I think, the toughest part, to just adapt and try to see different way when you play in different positions. And I think it takes always like few games to really get going on that position, because you have to think, as I said, think a little bit different. And yeah, it's tough, but I really enjoy it. And it's just like I said before, I'm happy to help the team how they see me best, and just go there.
Do you ever find that you're not as sharp then in certain areas when you haven't played in a spot consistently? Because when you were on the right and you're cutting in on your left, I mean, that's where a lot of your goals were coming from. And then when you were
Yeah.
playing the number 9 at times for Minnesota, you found a way to be effective and score goals. Then you dropped a little deeper. You're in the midfield, not scoring as many goals, but being effective for the team in other ways. So then when now you do get a shot opportunity, you do get a chance, do you feel like you're maybe not as sharp in those moments because you haven't played there consistently?
Yeah, definitely. Because as I said, if you play one position all the time, as you said, when I'm playing the right side, there's things that I do automatically that I don't even have to think about it because I'm so used to it, kind of. So yeah, there's moments when you play in a new position that you start to like a little bit hesitate yourself, and things doesn't come so naturally. But as you play a little bit more, you start to like realize the things like where to move and how to position yourself in a different moments, and that's the funniest part, because that's the one I enjoy, because I have to think about a lot when I play. So yeah.
Speaking of sort of adjusting on the fly, when you get called into international duty and you've played different positions there as well, and you're clearly playing with different guys, and what was that first senior team, first team call up like for you as you just kind of harkened back to your younger days, trying to get the call ups, the youth national teams? What was the first time you got into the first team and you got your first cap? What was that moment like for you? And then what's it like now every time, there's an opportunity to get called back in, whether it's for these windows or for friendlies or whatever it might be?
I mean, surely, like as a like sporting wise, it's one of my proudest moments when you get the first call up to the national team on the first team, because it's something you dream of when you're a kid. And I remember when I was small and I went to the Olympic Stadium to watch Finnish national team playing, and idolizing those players, and didn't know how to even think about it, that one day I could be there on that position. So surely it was like one of the proudest moments, and it's just, even now I've been playing many years in the national team. I have probably like more than 60 games. It's still something like special and unique when you can represent your country and put the shirt on and listen to the national anthem and go on the field. So I really enjoy it, and yeah, it's amazing. And also, like, there's since the Finnish country is not so big and the population is not so high, so there's a lot of guys that I grew up when I was younger, and are like really good friends of mine. So it's always nice to go to the national team, because at the same time you can represent Finland, but also you can see your friends and catch up them, because we are all living abroad and on a different country. So it's nice to see them as well.
How many times has your family been able to watch you play with the first team, or your wife or your daughter? Like, how many times, because it seems like they're here and you're always going away, have they gotten to see you besides just on television or streaming the game? I mean, what's that like when your family can be a part of it?
It's everything to me, to be honest. Like, they being helping me so much that I can be in this position and enjoy my dreams, and as I always say, that I'm forever grateful for them, how much they have been doing for me, and yeah, I think they've been like pretty much all the home games for sure, and a lot of away games. Every time they have a chance to come, they will come, and they will travel to see me playing. So it's everything for me, because I know how much they have been done for me. So it's something that I can a little bit give them back, and that's why it keeps you pushing even more in the field when you see them on the stands.
I remember from a Minnesota United perspective, we were doing the pregame show on the concourse last year, and your dad came up to us. He was in town, and he was like, "I really enjoy watching your broadcast, but I'm really looking forward to this Apple deal, so I don't have to stream the games illegally anymore."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, this year it's been good for them, because it's way easier to watch when they are back in Finland. So yeah, they've been trying. I mean, we play always like middle of the night. I think the usual time is like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. and still my parents are waking up to see my games, and even my brothers some days. So it's nice that they are, that they are there watching.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I know. It's funny because almost every week when we do these interviews for Apple, for MLS, every international player has that same feedback. Like their family and their friends and the people that have supported them along this journey are now able to watch their games and so much easier. And it's like there's a sense of they kind of light up about it because it's just more accessible for them.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
When you look at your skills, what would you say is like you were writing a paragraph about yourself and you're like, Robin Lod, this is what I can do, like your own little resume. What would be top of the list if you were trying to like sell yourself, pitch yourself to another team and you had to like spew on about your good qualities?
Oh, I don't know. That might be the hardest question to Finnish person to say.
You're getting uncomfortable over there. You're moving around.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I mean, I think I would like to imagine myself as a all around, that there's not many weaknesses. I say that I'm really I can do everything kinda in the field and just build up from there. Probably say like not having any like big weaknesses is the biggest strength.
Now, do you find yourself working on everything then? Or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, or when you were honing your skills, even growing up and you were seeing these other guys maybe advance a little bit and you maybe, according to you, took a step backwards. Was there something that you honed in at and you're like, or had feedback sometime along in your young career that was like, you need to sharpen up on this or that, and then you will get to that next level?
No, I don't know. I just always, I think the one thing like I like football is because it's so unique, that there's so much going on, that there's so many things you can do, and there's not one particular things that happens all the time at the same way in the game. So I just always like to be best in every aspect. And yeah, I know I'm not the fastest player on the field, and I know it. So I just try to contribute in other ways. So I just try to be like as best as I can in different areas, and I just try to be like all around and unique, and that way that I always can play in different position and be there and do my job.
So when you look ahead at this weekend's matchup against Orlando City, and you and I, we were kind of joking before we came and started recording about it sort of being this rematch with Adrian Heath and his old team, which maybe seems like an eternity ago now to him, but there's always something when you play your former clubs. It's the same thing when you're an athlete. What do you see from Orlando City, and how do you guys bounce back from the Chicago game? Or do you even really feel like there's a need to bounce back? Was that just not your night? Like, how did you guys view even the first half and the second half against Chicago was like two different kind of games?
Yeah, I think the Chicago game is like the first 60 minutes being probably the worst in a really long time. Especially for sure, it was the worst 60 minutes in this season by far. And the good thing is that the last 25-30 minutes we get to play how we know to play, and we can start to build up from there. I mean, everybody is gutted that we didn't get the win, and this team hate to lose. So for sure, it's good that we have a home game to bounce back, and also like to play home. We haven't won yet, so that's something that's pushing us forward to have to go on the home game and in front of our fans and give them win, because I think they deserve it, because they're always there cheering us and doing amazing job making the atmosphere so good that it gives us even a little bit more in the game. So I'm really like looking forward for it.
And it might be warm, like you might actually be sweating. You might get out on the grass at Blaine, before you guys get the grass at Allianz. I mean, that's going to feel nice.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was joking with some of the friends here in the team that it's crazy that we always play in the cold weather and it's snowing or like something is not nice, and then you watch the highlights from the other games and people are enjoying the sunny weather and seeing the spectators in the t-shirts and shorts is like so annoying. But yeah, hopefully it's a nice weather this time.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I was just saying to my husband, because like I just opened all the windows to do the podcast. And I'm like, it's days like these that make you forget just how awful the last like 6 months have been. It's like this weird short-term memory where you're like, oh, this is why we live here. Like summer's great. But it's like in the midst of it, you're like, wow, we had like 8 inches of snow like a week and a half ago, and it was awful.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. And, I guess the last question I'll ask is just sort of, and I don't know if you'll answer this or not, but I know you and Boxel are pretty good friends, and you guys have similar in the sense that, you're married, small children, things like that. And you guys spend, a decent amount of time together. So do you have any good dirt for us on him, or, so then next time I do the podcast with Boxel, I can ask him for dirt on you, like any funny stories, any good things on any teammates here?
No, I think Boxall is closest the perfect man I can imagine. So there is not a single bad thing I can say about him. Unfortunately, maybe he's too perfect. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's the negative. That's the dig. Yeah. Well, I appreciate. He does have your jersey. Have you seen your jersey is hanging up like in his office or whatever behind him?
Yeah, I mean I got one of his in my home back in Finland. So yeah, it's nice to change those, and once the time goes forward, it's nice to come back on those memories and know who you play with and who you had the best time.
That's awesome. Thanks, Robin. I appreciate you taking the time. I hear you have a gym session maybe, so I'll let you get to that. But thanks for taking the time and joining me here today.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, coming up next, we have an additional segment. Peter McDonnell is going to come and join us and talk about the GA Cup and recap some of the youth soccer with Minnesota United. As the official healthcare provider of Minnesota United, Allina Health is focused on keeping our Loons in top condition. And with expertise in orthopedics, sports medicine, heart care, and more, Allina has the team to keep your family in the game too. The experts at Allina Health take the time to get to know you as a whole person, helping you achieve wellness for your mind, body, and spirit. It's an altogether better kind of healthcare. Learn more at allinahealth.org. Welcome back to the second segment of Sound of the Loons, presented by Allina Health. And now we're moving on. We visited with Robin Lod of the first team. Now we're going to move on to Academy and kind of the stellar tournament that the Academy was just a part of for Minnesota United. And I'm joined by the U15 head coach, Peter McDonnell. So first of all, thanks so much for joining me. I know you've had an absolutely crazy week getting back into town from Florida from the GA Cup, but thanks for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, thanks, Kyndra. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I just, the whole league is putting so much emphasis now on the youth movement. And some clubs have been doing it for a while. It's nothing new for a lot of the clubs, but Minnesota United really kind of finding its form and getting the momentum going here. Can you tell people that don't know, what is the GA Cup and why is it beneficial for clubs and academies like yourselves, like the U15s and the U17s, to go to these tournaments and play this kind of competition?
Yeah, well, firstly, GA Cup is kind of the pinnacle of youth soccer events in the United States for the year. I mean, we have a number of events that occur, flex tournaments and playoff tournaments that occur towards the end of the year. But as far as competitive and like pinnacle events are considered, GA Cup would be the one that all players talk about. This year had 49 clubs, a record 49 clubs from 12 different countries. And, how that's beneficial is the first time or the first exposure for U15 players to play against international competition. I think if you look at other environments, be that in Europe or South America, academy teams are being exposed to playing international environments sooner and sooner. And that provides a little bit of a shock maybe to some players who, they've come from playing their youth soccer in local environments against teams from Minnesota or teams from Iowa or teams from Michigan, and now they have playing teams from England, teams from Mexico. We played a team from Denmark, so it really stretches the maybe competitive naivety very quickly, and allows them to understand. It's like, okay, well, we thought we were positioned quite well here, but we have a lot to learn.
So I was just going to ask you about that. So what were the expectations from you as a staff? What were your expectations going to a tournament like this, especially with this group in particular? And I understand that a lot of the academy players, the second team, first team, I mean, there can be moving parts and moving pieces. So finding the cohesiveness with some of these young players to be able to train together, be together, you know, solidify what you're trying to accomplish. Some guys are going up and playing with the two. Some guys are coming back to the academy. So when you were going to this tournament, how well prepared did you feel this group was at? What were your sort of expectations for this group?
Yeah, look, we say that GA Cup is the pinnacle of youth soccer tournaments, you know, but realistically over an academy player's life, the most important pinnacle is whether he moves on to second team or first team football, or whether he comes back to the club as a staff member or a lifetime fan. Like, they're the most, I would say, you know, if you're looking at key performance indicators for us at the moment, that's where we have to look. We certainly, despite some of the players, and this is where their naivety comes in, we certainly, as a staff, didn't go in and say, you know, we could win this, you know, we're looking to win this event. Realistically, where we're situated in the academy ecosystem, we are still looking at these events as providing learning experiences for us as a staff, providing a direction that we can then say, okay, we've looked at this, we've seen the academies that we've been competing in on a local scale and a global scale. We've clearly been competitive against them, but now where are the pieces, you know, what's the details that we need to move forward as an academy that works for Minnesota United? And, you know, that's kind of been our expectations. Obviously, you want to be competitive. I think when you look at the caliber of teams that are there, whether we play Northland in the first game, you know, under 17s were due to play Boca Juniors. Unfortunately, they had to pull out at the last moment, and we ended up playing IMG Academy, but they played Pumas. We played Arsenal in our last game. We played Club Bolivar for the under 15s. So, you know, to expose the players, the young players, to this environment was very important for us. And then it's managing expectations, right? So we had a couple of players who said, yeah, you know, the first night they're there, we want to win it, coach. We want to win it. And we don't want to take that away from them. But then it's managing their expectations. Okay, so the first game we performed maybe below expectations as an under 15 team. So it's a learning experience for the 10 days there. How do you react to that? So same thing if you're in a first team preseason and you have a poor game as a player who might be moving up, an academy player move into the first team. How do you react to that after maybe a poor training session? So for us, it was continuously going to be a learning experience. But from a global aspect, as a staff, we had to pay attention to what else was going on in the academies, locally and globally. So if you look at Austin's academy, who won it at under 15, they're only 4 years in existence. So as we start to grow this, what we want to do with Minnesota United, we have to start to look at, you know, where do we want to target our growth? Is it winning U15 GA Cup after 4 years? I would argue that it's probably not a good barometer of success if in 5 years' time you've got no first team or academy players moving into the second team. So there's many aspects of learning we can take from this as a staff over the last 10 days. And for the players, hopefully they've learned how to manage their expectations and take things game by game versus setting a really high bar for themselves, because what matters is the performance in the moment.
That's such a great point, because managing, you know, you don't want to take away their confidence in feeling like this is something about, you know, they're setting the high bar for themselves and having high expectations for themselves, but managing the emotions and the feelings of when that doesn't come to fruition, especially if you lose the first game or you don't perform well or whatever, you don't get the result that you wanted, regardless of who you're playing against. So did you feel like the group grew in that? And they're still only 15 years old. You know, I mean, this is an age group where you're bringing guys from all different walks of life together, to manage the expectations, but the emotions and how they came out on the other side of it. And for the 17s as well, but more specifically for the 15s, did you feel like you walked away from it? They walked away from it having learned a ton and better off for it?
Yeah, I mean, I think again this year is similar to last year. We had one of the youngest teams at GA Cup. We carry some 2009, so some true U14s with us. So players who are not yet 14. So their reality of the world is, sure, we can go out and we can win this. We can go unbeaten for 7 games straight. Then the reality of what happened to them in game 1, where they played Northland, and they didn't know who Northland was. So they thought, okay, a team from Denmark, we're as good as them because, we're as Denmark. But ultimately, Northland have got one of the most targeted academies in Scandinavia. They use a lot of data to provide their first team with the youngest player age per any team in European competitions. I think their average age is 21.5 years old. So they've got a very targeted academy system. So our players went out. We had a plan for what we were going to do. We wanted to stay true to our principles of what we learned all season. But really quickly they understood and felt. The biggest thing is I'm trying to get into these lads is the feeling of momentum. They felt how good their academy was. And we were 1-0 down at halftime with a couple of things to fix. But I think the whole occasion started to overwhelm them really quickly in that first game because, we ended up losing at 4-0. Now, from a coach's point of view, we had to pick up the pieces pretty quickly and learn. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, game 1 is going to be really difficult. If we can get something from us that sets us up for game 2 and game 3, so that we might squeak out, getting into the group playoff stages. It's not something we set our targets towards, but it would have been nice for the club and for the players. So then after that, the conversation shifts to how do you react and how do you manage your emotions? Okay, so you feel like the world is crumbling and you can't make it any further, but we have to play Houston Dynamo tomorrow. So right away, you think about it, you might feel sorry for yourself for maybe 5 minutes, but once you leave the dugout area and you move forward to what's next. And what's important now is very important for the players to understand. It's preparation, it's recovery, it's the players who maybe didn't play an awful lot of football against Northland. How are they going to use the learning against Dynamo? So we drew that game against Dynamo and unfortunately lost it on penalty kicks. And then again, afterwards, some disappointment. You move into the game against Orlando with maybe some, they want to qualify from the group, right? They're young men who are trying to be competitive and they know what they had lofty ambitions. And you go into a game against Orlando City, again, another pretty established academy and the direction they want to head. And they eventually I think they finished 4th in the event. And, we pushed them all the way to 2-1 at the end. So the only thing that we could expect from a coach's point of view in that was how they would react and how we would stay competitive. After losing the first game 4-0, even though we put in a great effort against them, it would be very easy to turn our back on, okay, well, we're not going to reach our goals. And so it's actually trying to reestablish their goal setting on a micro basis, on a local basis versus, okay, maybe the global aspect is not achievable, but how are you going to learn? So.
Well, when you look at it and were you guys able to go to the U17s games, or I don't know how the schedule works out, is there a benefit there in having, that connection and sort of, we talk all the time about if you can see it, you can be it sort of aspect, right? And right. You see the 15s that are maybe trying to aspire to the 17s, the 19s, the second team, the first team, whatever it might be, wherever they want to end up at the end of the day. So how important do you feel that is and beneficial that is that, they can see what is possibly ahead for them and strive for those things? Yeah,
for sure. That helped. And I think one of the bedrocks of what we've been able to achieve in a short space of time here at the Academy is creating a togetherness and a culture of unity. And what helped snap the 15s out of maybe the natural aspect of feeling sorry for themselves was they got to go support the 17s. So they're out there, I'll say it, they're stealing trash cans from the hotel so they can beat them as drums for the U17s. And they're back into being supporters and fans again. And with the 17's first game against IMG, not being against Boca, the 17's probably needed a little bit of a pick-me-up. Okay, IMG, very difficult opponent, but it wasn't Boca Juniors. So that was their highlight of their group stage, and it got taken away from them. So we made it very clear that we needed the 15's to be out there and celebrating what the 17's could bring. And, you know, as the 12th man, maybe the 17 scored 2 goals and had great celebrations against IMG and was set up in that group stage to be competitive straight away. So then we, as under 15 staff, we could feed into that. And I think without that unity and without that culture that's driven us, like, no, hey, go out and support your teammates. Let's not, you know, this is one club mentality where there's no feeling sorry for yourself. Right now we have to go and watch the U17s and be the loudest group there. And I think, that went all the way through the group stages and all the way into the showcase stages. We had each team out celebrating each other. And I think we started to annoy the whole complex at one stage because how loud we were. And that's important too, because football is a connection of everybody. And it is this whole piece of not just one person's performance on any given day. It's this whole piece of energy that we can give to our fans and hopefully our club for a long time to come.
Yeah, and I mean, I just love that because you talk about 2 different kinds of disappointments. Maybe you have the U15s who didn't even know who their first opponent was and they weren't even understanding of it. Mm-hmm. And then you have the 17s who were planning on playing Boca Juniors. And so because of the name, it's elevated in their mind that this is going to be the highlight of their group stage game. And disappointment comes when Boca Juniors can't get in the country, whether it was visa, paperwork, passport, whatever it might be. So you had to, you were that support system for them in that moment. And kind of how it can go back and forth. And it's not just about your own individual team. It's about the academy as a whole. And it's about, going back to the system of the second team and the first team and everybody working towards the common goal and of getting to the first team. And if it's not the first team, like you said, it's being a part of Minnesota United in some way, shape, or form and moving on. I remember talking to Amos McGee about that last year when he was, kind of got into his new role and just saying what his ultimate goal, and he loves youth soccer, is to make everybody a fan of soccer, a good human being. And if they continue on this path, that's like a bonus. Of course, you want to teach that and have them be successful from a soccer perspective, but successful as a life perspective. And if they're not, they're coming back in the stands and cheering on the first team at some point in their life.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when you look at this event as well, this event occurs in April, and what's really important to realize is that we're not outside that often before April.
Like never.
So, never.
Very rarely.
Yeah. We cleared some snow a week before the event to get some 11v11 stuff happening. So we needed, and we always are going to need, I think the first team shows it too with the stadium. The second team with what they can create on the road is like, when we go on the road, we have to bring our home with us. So when we watch our players and how united they are together, whether it's at the beach, whether they're there or whether they're supporting them, we need that. And particularly with GA Cup for many years to come, it's always going to be in April. We're not going to have a lot of time outside to prepare, and we're going to need that culture to drive it. So
yeah, you say you're bringing your home with you. Well, there's no snow on the beach there.
No, absolutely no snow. But the boys had fun with. I think they were playing some beach volleyball, and it was a day away from maybe it was just on one of our off days, and even just to watch them, how they interact on the beach, and they're so. I keep using the word united. It's kind of corny to use it, but they are so together and so united on the beach. I talk to other coaches and I talk to other under 15 coaches. They're like, you guys do this with them and that with them. And our guys will be running off down the street here. And for some reason, maybe it's where they're from or whatever, but they just enjoy, a little bit of togetherness. And you can see that through how they played football after a really disappointing start, and then how they played football right through to the end, with both teams being successful right at the end day, the last final day of the tournament.
Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about you and your coaching, because what you're talking about there is a lot of culture. And I think anybody who's been around any sport for a long time understands the importance of culture and chemistry. And if you don't get that right, then sometimes it doesn't matter, what you throw out on the field. And you're part of an elite formation coaching license. And I want to know, you know, how that came about, what that means, how you feel like you can carry what you learned from this course into what you're doing now. How much is it tactical and awareness, and how much is it just, you know, the coach and the mindset, and so much is about mental health and other things these days. So talk to us a little bit about that, and how that came about and what that means for you.
Yeah, so this came about, it's kind of a partnership with the French Federation and MLS, and it's the fifth iteration of this. So it's the EFCL 5 is what it's dubbed. And effectively, me and 24 other of my colleagues from Academy Systems and MLS Next Pro Systems are on the course for the next 18 months. So it began in Clairefontaine in France in February, and it finishes in Clairefontaine in France in July 2024. So I was put forward by the club to take part in this. It was accepted, and we started by having a 8-day event in Clairefontaine in France at the INF, where effectively the French football team trains out of. The French Federation trains out of there for their Parisian players. And it was it's been a detailed and very strenuous immediate look into what the French training system has consisted of over the last 20 years. So if you look at their World Cup performances over the last 15 years, they've been very successful with their methodologies of how they produce players. That's not to say what I'm looking for from this is to copy it, but it's going to certainly provide another look at what a successful methodology for player development looks like. So that first week in Clairefontaine has been pretty much providing us with what the methodology looks like, what the support, you get to speak about mental health, what the support of the coaches and the coaching staff can look like throughout a methodology program. So it's not just the X's and O's of tactics. It's not just the individual development of technique, but it's the emotional development of the player over time. So that's the biggest thing, is like over time, and that's the big thing that's kind of stuck with me. Over time, a player can develop in this system because they're free to make decisions based around the methodology. It's not a structured, you must do this because this is happening methodology. It's more of a system of, if you see an environment like this, maybe it's pressure from defenders, maybe it's the rules I have in a training session, then behavior changes over time, and it's okay to make mistakes as that behavior changes. So it's been very interesting for me to get my teeth into this. There'll be 4 other events we take part in the United States. So 1 week at Colorado Rapids, 1 week at Columbus Crew, 1 week at LA Galaxy, and 1 week at Inter Miami, where we will be practicing and evaluated on how we do within the methodology. I also went for a week in Toulouse, France, to Toulouse FC for a club visit. So effectively to see how that methodology is tweaked at Toulouse within their academy strategy to develop and produce players for their first and second teams. And then at the end of those 18 months, I will go back to Clairefontaine in France in July 2024 and be evaluated on my overall performance, which includes how I coach the methodology, how I've been able to present in front of people, how I've been able to implement some of the learning within our club academy system. And then obviously the final piece on the field, how I develop the full methodology on the pitch in front of my peers.
So does that feel like there's a lot of pressure that comes with that? I mean, you said it's been strenuous because you also have like this job, right, that you're trying to do and these other, and you know, make sure that you're doing all justice. Like, do you feel like there's pressure that's coming with that? Or do you feel like you're just trying to take it all in as a positive experience that it'll help you in the long run, it'll help the club in the long run, or whoever it is that you're coaching going forward and what you're a part of?
Yeah, I think as we continue to develop what the academy can look like over time, it's really important to get different inputs. you know, whether it's from Toulouse, whether it's from, I just, you know, did an academy director course, whether it's from networking at GA Cup, whether it's from learning this methodology, whether it's from an old license, whether it's from people like, we get a lot of great knowledge from the first team staff now, Sean Macaulay regularly visiting our meetings, whether it's from Amos that's been, you know, at the first team level for so long. And, you know, there's so many different inputs that we can gather to create what's important for Minnesota. I think what would be really naive is to go, okay, I'm going to take this French course and that's all I'm going to do at Minnesota United. It would help me get it done really quickly, and it would help my time a lot better if I just said, no, we're just going to do this. But yeah, it's going to be difficult over the next, you know, 18 months to, yes, I have this team, we have this academy where we want to move players through to the second and first team. But I also have this thing sitting in the corner that I have 8 training sessions to develop in the next, you know, 4 weeks to send so that I can be evaluated on them. But everything is going to continue to feed what's important in the academy. You know, it is detailed. I probably haven't been under as much pressure in a course as I have been in this course, but certainly when we were in Clairefontaine, the presentation detail, the way they kind of surgically go through your opinion to see if you're open-minded. And then from there, you know, your content has to be pretty good. I think this is how they've been as detailed with their methodology as they have been over the last while in France, is because they have been surgical with player development. And yeah, it's going to be important for me to stay on top of the work, but then not to forget what's happening here at Minnesota United, because it can't be, I'm just doing this right now and I have to park everything else. So yeah, it's going to be a lot, but I think by the end of it, we will have a lot of, as I say, inputs that we can help grow the academy for years here. So.
Well, and last but not least, I want to know how to tell our listeners about how they can how can they watch the 15s, the 17s, the academy teams, because even when the GA Cup was announced and it was announced that, you know, a good majority of the games were being streamed on Apple, I sent that to, you know, my daughter's club team, some of the teammates that have brothers, because I just think it's so important for them, not always to be watching the pros in the first team, but to see what's in between there and the quality of the competition and building again that soccer culture here in Minnesota, where you're getting the best talent from the state and this region to play for your academy. So how can people find you guys in your schedule and come and watch some of your matches?
Yeah, GA Cup one was an interesting one because it was their first year with Apple. So previous years they've put it up on YouTube and maybe there was more of a selection of games. Unfortunately, Minnesota United didn't have any games, even though the final game we played against Arsenal was a fun game. We were back in the field in the corner. So we have a little bit of to do as an academy to get on the fields with the TVs on them, and that may be a chip on our shoulder we can use for a few years. But moving forward, our schedule is online on MLSsoccer.com under the MLS Next. We have some home games coming up. We have to travel for the next weekend away to Columbus and Cincinnati. And then following that weekend, we will play Houston Dynamo and St. Louis at home here in Minnesota. I think the Houston Dynamo game is actually on the second team pitch, which awesome. will be a cool event for the kids. And then we're at home for a little bit of a stretch with some games here, but in the spring, but nothing televised. So the best thing will be.
But I mean, they can come to the games. That's
best thing to do would be to come to Blaine and check it out and check out the atmosphere there, because again, when the 17s are playing, the 15s are there. If the 19s are playing, the 15s and 17s are playing are supporting. And it is an enjoyable atmosphere, especially if a goal is scored. You'll see what it means because it's difficult to score a goal in MLS Next, and it's difficult to score in MLS Next, or MLS, in fact. So we celebrate that, and when we celebrate that, hopefully people can be there to see what the groups are about, not just in the playing style, but also in how we celebrate things.
That's awesome. I love that, because I mean, most of these clubs, they're up at Blaine and NSC all the time anyways, for other training sessions, for other tournaments, for other. So I think it's just about knowing where to find it and how to get to it and watch it and be there in person, because then you can feel the atmosphere, you can feel the energy, and then it's just more interest in building and taking the talent that's already here in this state and making sure that if they want to be, they can try to be a part of what you guys have going on there. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. I'm excited to see what the 15s, 17s, 19s, and all of the above do, and the trickle up effect of, getting to the MLS next, to the twos, and then of course the first team as well. So I appreciate you taking the time today.
Great. Thanks, Kyndra. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys, up next, we have a special podcast. We're going to reach out to some community aspects of Minnesota United. So stay tuned to Sound of the Loons. Welcome back, everybody, to the third and final segment of this week's Sound of the Loons podcast presented by Allina Health. And this is a special one because these are the moments I think that Minnesota United as a club really live for, to have this community outreach where we can highlight different aspects of what is going on in our community and what is so important to Minnesota United as a club, as a fan base, as a front office staff, whatever it might be. So this week we are joined by the Indigenous Peoples Task Force and two very special guests that are joining me as well. And I want to kind of let you guys introduce yourselves in the sense that what your title is, how long you've been with the Indigenous Peoples Task Force, and then kind of circle back and we can talk about what you have going on this weekend and what is so important and what is your mission with you guys and in this community.
Great.
So go ahead, Brenna. You get us rocking here.
All right. Hi, my name is Brenna Deppis, and I've been part of the Indigenous Peoples Task Force since 2010, and my role here is youth programs coordinator. So over those years, I've done a variety of Native youth programming, mostly after-school programming, involved a variety of topics related to health and health education, and doing some like community engagement and outreach. And just started kind of doing some soccer programming with the youth that we work with. Just I guess in 2020 we started doing that. So,
all right, Sir Kirby, you're up.
Hello, Buju. That's hello in my language, Ojibwe. My name is Sir Curtis Kirby III, and I've been working at Indigenous Peoples Task Force for like 11 years now. And at the moment, I am the artistic director, but I started as a health educator. And I've been here a while now, so some of my hats have changed, So, in that capacity, we really drove ourselves on theater. But me and Brenna are also coming from a sports background. We both played college sports, and so I came from a football background, and she came from, a track background. And so we wanted to, make sure that we continue to improve the health of our youth. And so I think soccer goes hand in hand,
I love that. And I think that too, when we talk about these community outreach programs and what we're trying to accomplish and what your mission statement is. And when you guys are both talking about the youth, but it's really about the community as a whole and how you're trying to reach the community and educate and bring energy and bring activities, bring options. How have you felt like you've been able to accomplish some of that? And what are you doing to accomplish some of those things in the community?
Well, I think that IPTF is really engaged in the community, all different age groups, and IPTF has been part of South Minneapolis for more than 30 years. And so throughout that history, there have been a lot of different programs. We started out as a organization to help Native people living with HIV, and then have always included cultural programming, things like traditional tobacco education, and a big part of our youth programming began with theater and helping youth tell stories and provide education for the community through acting and being on stage and telling kind of memorable messages that way.
Kirby, what have you seen? What have you seen in your 11 years and some of the progress and some of was there any moment where like an aha moment for you with any individual youth, any specific individual? Maybe it's a group where you just see this transformational process and a real change.
Yeah, I think the group that we have right now, we have some young adults working for us from the ages of 18 to 22. And I remember a lot of them we got when they were like, a lot of them came to our programs when they were like 11 and 12. And I think one thing that me and Brenna both came into this, and we've been working the program for at least like 3 to 4 years. And we had trial error, and we've had a lot of good youth, and those youth that came before them were great as well. But I think something clicked with these youth, and I think that we really knew, like, we took some of the values that we grew up with, and we really just instilled, we had like a lot of high expectations of them that we wanted to teach them that they should have for themselves, and be able to commit to things. And oftentimes when you're not playing any organized sports, or there's not a lot of opportunities, in the neighborhood that we come from. We come from the East Phillips neighborhood, and I grew up, working in White Bear Lake School District. I grew up in Highland Park, so I've seen a lot of the inequities that they had, but I knew that we also had to install a lot of rigor in them and a lot of commitment. And so now, today, I'm at my shoe store right now, and I'm directing a piece with Pangea World Theater, and so I'm not able to go up north with them, but they're up north doing a performance that Brenda's talking about on their own, and they're 18 to 22 years old, and they really are forming a career path as they continue their education. And so I think just working with that group, and now we have a bunch of youth underneath them that participate in, soccer programs and theater programs and, community health programs. And so just seeing that leadership being passed, and really making sure that there's not a gap in leadership as they continue to get older and our community continues to grow.
Well, I know you guys have an event this weekend coming up with Minnesota United out on the Great Line. There's going to be a soccer game. When you talk about the commitment of sports and just commitment of, and it doesn't always have to be sports, it could be something else, as you're talking about theater, but just options being available, and just feeling like having this belief in themselves that they can accomplish these things, that they can be a part of these things, that these are available to them. And then, and I was just talking about this with the academy coaches, if you see it, you can be it. And so when you have these 18 to 22-year-olds that have gone through the program, then these other youngsters, they realize that, okay, if they can do it, I can do it too. And these are options that are available for me. Is there sometimes, Brenna, where you just see this, is that the moments, those are the moments that bring you joy, is when you see these things come to fruition and you see it really turning into, see these kids accomplishing these things?
Yeah. We were able to bring some youth to their first MN United soccer game last October, I think. And I know that just seeing some of those 11, 12-year-old boys, like, they had never seen soccer played that way before, because kind of the soccer that we introduced at IPTF, we were walking to East Phillips Park, doing some like small-sided games, individual sort of little competition games, knee tag, things like that. And so I could just see their faces light up when they saw like the goalie kick the ball beyond half the field, and even just feel the energy that is at MN United. And so it was just cool to see them enjoy that experience and be laughing and smiling. And it definitely gave them a hunger to continue to play soccer. And when they're part of our programs now, and so they're always asking me about it. They were really jealous that I got to have a scarf. And so I'm really looking forward to this weekend when we can bring even more youth to see the game in person and be part of that Native Heritage celebration that you guys are holding. So I think this will be a really like memorable moment in their year, and maybe even their middle school years.
When you guys are doing what you do on a daily basis and being a part of, trying to continue to sort of enhance and bring to life the community and what these kids are a part of, and even as they go to be young adults, where and how can people get involved? How do you spread the word? How do you get people involved? How does that come about? I know you guys are going to have a table at the Lawn layover this weekend, so I think that's important because you put it out there. But what would you want to say to people?
I would just like to say in general, like I think, and not to get too preachy, but in a general sense of like, Indigenous people, like there's not too many places you can go in this world and you can't, you don't wonder about the people that are from your very backyard, or want to taste the food, or want to, see what's going on, or how can you help? Like a lot of times, like, we're helping people across seas, we're helping people in all different places, but I think it's very important that people invest back into, our communities, and just in our communities in general, the people that are here right now, and especially Indigenous people, and get to know them, because we have beautiful things and beautiful cultures that we would like to experience, but also we would like to experience other things. And so like Alina, we partner with them in many of different ways. And, us being able to, partner with, like we would like more partnerships. We would like to see more, people, seeing what, how can we collaborate? Not how can you just help us, but how can we collaborate in something? And, maybe not us, maybe another organization, So that's what I would like to see, a lot more collaboration in these communities, and less silos.
I love that. I think that's such a great aspect. And you said it. I mean, we're living in this community here, and this specifically, we're talking the Twin Cities or Minnesota, investing back in that community. And Brenna, would you echo the same sentiment? And then once again, like, how do people, if someone's listening to this podcast and they're part of another organization, they're part of another group that also wants to collaborate and not operate in these silos and try to work together on things, how do people find you guys? How do people find your organization? How can people reach out and find a way to collaborate and to be a part of what you guys have going on?
Instagram. No.
We are on Instagram. The Aikido Fire Sema is the name of our account. And so that's combining kind of our three programs, the Aikido and Acting Ensemble, and then Keep the Fire Alive is our mental health teen young adult program. And then Asema is the Ojibwe word for traditional tobacco. Also, the IPTF's website is indigenouspeoplestf.org, and you can learn more about all the programs that we have. And then under staff, you could find Kirby and I's photos and send us an email or give us a phone call. And also, if you wanted to visit our office, we are in South Minneapolis. So that's a good way to learn. Just come see what we're doing, what programs are happening, and be a part of it that way.
Do either of you have, I don't know, Kirby, I kind of asked you this already, sort of like one moment or an individual or, an aspect of that, but what really, fills your cup when you show up at work every day? Like and we all would love to find that in our lives. Right. And when you're giving back, and sometimes I've different things that what you feel like you get more than you give sometimes when you're partnering or when you're joining, when you're being a part of a community. What sort of fills your cup with the Indigenous Peoples Task Force and what you've been able to accomplish?
I'll go first, Brendan. I'll let you finish it off. But sure. I think our executive director, Sharon Day, she's the founder. She's a great leader. And I think when you see leadership like that, you want to be able to spread leadership as wide as you can, because she always says, like, lead with love, or whatever you do with love. And I think when you are able to do that, I mean, we all have our bad moments and our bad days, but when you know that the prize at the end, is helping your community and continuing to push them forward. And even helping myself, because I think as I help my community, I grow so much as a person, And so I remember probably like 7 years ago, I told Brendan, I was like, when I'm artistic director, I probably said executive director, but I was joking. I want to be able to travel the world with these kids and be able to see. And I think in the last 5 years, we've traveled anywhere from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., to the deep south of Tennessee. And we're heading to Ireland this June, So to continue to expand these youth horizons, to continue to grow, and, they grow with us, as we I have a store called The Hype, and it stands for Help Your People Eat, and it's a shoe store. And my youth that are in my programs have helped, their families. My dad's a, contractor. It's well, bring them on over. We need someone to help us with the store. So continuing to just figure out in every facet of our community, how can we grow and how can we continue to help each other? And that's what drives me.
Love that. Brenna?
I'm really grateful that there are a lot of moments that have brought me a lot of joy. And like Kirby said, I've I've grown and gained as much from this program as I hope I've contributed to the youth participants. I guess one of my favorite things that I've seen over and over is just when a group of, like 8 to 10 kind of shy kids will get together on day one, and we always have a relatively like rigorous plan, whether it's like so many soccer sessions, or we're going to do these mental health packets and activities, or create an entire play. And then just to watch them kind of like struggle through the work of it, but to see them keep showing up. And then we get to a finish line, whether it's doing a community performance or watching them facilitate programming for others, or just seeing them be really happy and confident. It never stops being rewarding. So
I love that. I do. I mean, I just feel like no one can, I don't know. I just feel like there's something when we do these community outreach pieces and we connect with people, because I know Minnesota United is always doing stuff with different parts of the community in the Twin Cities and greater Twin Cities and Minnesota area. And that's such an important initiative. But then when you actually get to see things come to fruition, you see, like you said, sort of the prize at the end, or the accomplishments made. And sometimes it could be the simplest thing. It doesn't have to be anything massive, but just seeing, I'm just such a firm believer in that you get more than you give, usually in just about any one of these instances. And, sometimes we go into think something, oh, I'm going to join this, I'm going to help this. And at the end of the day, they're helping you more than you're helping them. And just seeing that accomplishment, I just love every aspect of that. So I appreciate both of you taking the time. I know you're both very busy. I'm looking forward to seeing, pictures and videos and everything from this weekend, the long layover, the next time this group gets to come to a Minnesota United match and really feel, the energy of the stadium and the fan base, and be a part of that activity. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to join me here today on the podcast. And, I respect and love what you guys are doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from you guys. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're happy to work with you, and then United, Minnesota's best live sporting event, in my opinion. So
yeah, we're shooting for season tickets next year.
Yeah. There you go. I love it. I think that should be definitely on the list. So I appreciate you guys, and thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for this episode of Sound of the Loons. Thanks again for joining me. And of course, this episode is brought to you by Allina Health. Have a great week, everybody.